How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today, where should you live? Where should I live? Where should people live if they're coming to Denver, Colorado? I'm going to cover some of the best, starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett, and if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is a channel for you. So the subscribe button and notification icon you see on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to get a little creative and educational here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of Denver's most talented realtors. So the number and email you see, know that I am always the person answering your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails, there when and if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is where should I live if I'm moving to Denver, Colorado? So today we're going to take a deep dive, if you will, into the western suburbs of Denver, the west side of Denver. And as I've mentioned many times, Denver is split east and west by I-25, our north-south running highway, and it runs just to the edge of Denver on the western side. And so what you'll tend to find, at least in my experience, is that people who grew up, people who have spent more time, whether it's on the west side of town or the east side of town, tend to gravitate towards that. It's what they tend to know. They know the suburbs, the neighborhoods, the restaurants, the cafes, right? It's only natural. So fans, people who, as me being an example, growing up on the west side of town, I grew up in Lakewood, I've spent time in Sloan's Lake, I've spent time in Wheat Ridge, but mainly in Lakewood. I'm a huge fan of the west side of town. I couldn't imagine living on the other side of I-25. I couldn't imagine living farther from the mountains, etc. And I humbly believe that you'll tend to see that. More so east to west than you will see north to south. I know plenty of people who grew up in North Denver or in the northern suburbs of Denver who have happily moved somewhere else and vice versa. But folks who grew up east and folks who grew up west tend to stay in the other. And if I had to make a stretch of all of the areas of Denver that are most popular, the western side of Denver is going to be the most desired because, number one, we're going to talk about the universal pros of the western side of Denver, and that is you're closer to the Rockies. And if you're moving to Denver, odds are the Colorado Rockies are part of it. You may have heard of them. They're a kind of a big deal. So that western side of town, one, gets you closer to those mountains. Two, tends to give you better views of those mountains. And number three, tends to give you the best versatile, I talk about location, but it gives you the ability to get into Denver and get to the mountains in reasonable periods of time. I, for example, where I am in Lakewood, can easily be to the mountains in 20 minutes or less, and I can be downtown Denver in 20 minutes or less. So to me, it is the perfect location and the perfect convenience. Universally speaking, and all of the neighborhoods we're going to talk about today will share in that convenience. So the first suburb we're going to talk about is the one I've already mentioned, and that's Lakewood. That's where I'm from. That is, I have to admit, my favorite suburb. Lakewood, geographically speaking, very large. It basically connects to Denver on its east side, and on the west side it connects to Golden, and it runs very far south, so it also connects to Littleton to our south. Pros of Lakewood: 100 parks. That's a great place to start. Tons of outdoor areas, tons of things to do, tons of places to explore. It caters to a variety of lifestyles. So what I mean by that is that Lakewood, because it is so close to Denver, you can be in neighborhoods with high walkability. You can be minutes from downtown Denver if that's your thing, or you could be on the western or southwestern side of Lakewood where you are, again, right up against neighborhoods, or I should say suburbs like Golden, like Morrison, where you're basically a skip, hop, and a jump, as the term goes, to getting into the Rocky Mountains. You also have a variety of different homes because of that. You'll have older homes built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s that are closer to Denver. And then as you start to move west, you'll get newer. A lot of the Denver community was built in the 70s and 80s, but then you'll get into great communities like Solterra that started to be built in the late 90s, early 2000s, but continues to have new construction to this day. And so because of that, you'll have, we talk about every home style you want, whether it is detached homes on big lots with mature trees and all that good stuff, some newer housing, townhomes, condos, apartments. If you want it, Lakewood is going to have it. Now, drawbacks to Lakewood, and we're going to keep this kind of lighthearted because I want you to see these communities within the western side of Denver. But drawbacks, one is that Lakewood doesn't have a lot of new construction. It doesn't have a lot of newer homes. And Solterra being kind of the emphasis of where the focus of that new construction is not cheap. So when you're looking for affordable new build houses, Lakewood is going to be limited in that way. We have some funky laws I won't go into in this video. It just doesn't make sense. But that's where you're going to find a lack. The other thing, and this is a bit more minor, is the fact that Lakewood is one of the few communities that does not have a designated downtown, if you will. We do have Belmar, which is just a couple minutes from me here in Lakewood. And Belmar has a bunch of shops and cafes and shopping, and it has housing around it, a lot of townhomes and condos and apartments in that area, but there's not a downtown Lakewood, and really no plans to do that. Most of the suburbs that you'll find all throughout Denver are going to have some type, even if it's just one road, some type of downtown area. Lakewood does not have that. And one thing I want to mention now, because this is something I kind of debated, when we're talking about affordability, I'm not going to dive too deep into affordability on this video, because to be honest with you, when we share information, if I start showing you the median list price of homes, to me, we don't get average. We don't get average price points, and we don't get a lot of data. So if I give you the median, to me, humbly speaking, it just does not give you the correct information to make a decision about where you're going to live. So for the sake of this video, this is all about just seeing them, hearing some good and bad, and then we can talk in depth. If you want to get to numbers, we can chat about that anytime. Next up on our fun-filled list of the western suburbs is Golden, which is, as I mentioned earlier, just to the west of Denver. And Golden is going to bridge your gap between Lakewood and then getting into the Rocky Mountains. Golden is absolutely one of my favorite towns. It is a town that I think for a long time I thought I would live in at one point, and who knows what the future holds. But for right now, I'm in Lakewood. I can just make a quick 10-15 minute drive up there. But Golden is just an amazing, when we're talking about pros, it's an amazing historical town. Very cool when you drive down into that valley and you see Golden. So you've got the history. You've got one of the coolest downtown areas that you're going to find. I mean, anywhere in, I'd say the Denver area, but I'd say just anywhere in Colorado. So Main Street, Washington Avenue gives you that strip as you pull into Golden and you see the Welcome to Golden sign and all the shops and restaurants, places that have been around for years and years. And then with a mix of new, there's a lot of new breweries, a lot of new restaurants. And it's one of those places where, as you would expect in a cute downtown area like that, on a sunny day, or heck, on a wintry, snowy day, it's just packed with people. There's people everywhere, families, singles, couples, friends, you name it, caters to everyone. So that downtown area is one of the coolest you're gonna see. And again, we talk about another pro of being the different varieties of where you can live. So Golden is going to have, in my humble opinion, a better mix than what Lakewood has. I talk about the age of some of Lakewood's homes. Well, Golden still has the same amenities, whether it's detached homes, townhomes, condos, apartments. But you've got, like in downtown Golden, you've got, some new townhomes and some new condos, new apartments. You've got a lot of walkability within that, more so than you're going to find in a place like Lakewood, where, you could be in those condos and apartments, come down, and you're right in the heart of town. Golden also has, before I forget to mention this, Clear Creek Canyon runs down it. So one of the favorite things for people to do, one of my favorite things to do, is drive up Clear Creek Canyon and then you'll get an inner tube and float down it. So on a sunny day, you'll see just a ton of people coming out of their apartments, coming out of their townhomes with their inner tubes ready to make that run. And you're right there with all of these breweries. Then, because of Golden's size and because so much of it had been just open land, they have filled that open land with a lot of new construction. So you do have a lot of new neighborhoods, a lot of new construction. Affordability in Golden is going to be a stretch. You know, it's going to be one of your higher price areas to want to live in, but they're going to give you, you know, whether it's homes that have been around for decades, if not over a century, to new homes. And they're going to give you a variety of plot sizes or acreage. So, you know, whether you're on you know, a decent sized bit of land, and we're not talking about multiple acres, you know, but a decent sized yard, up to, there are some places as you get farther into the hills where, I mean, the houses are, you know, this close together. So you've got all of the variety there. And if you happen to be rich, I mean, some of the most impressive houses, we'll say wealthy, is wealthy better than rich? Some of the most impressive houses you're going to see are in Golden. Multi-million-dollar places, the kind of place that if you want to buy them and you just happen to, you know, feel like letting someone live in the West Wing, you know, hit me up. I'll help you buy it, and then I'll, you know, live in the West Wing with you. How cool would that be? All right, I kid. I've got my own house. We're okay. And another pro of Golden that we have to mention is the School of Mines, one of the most prestigious engineering schools in the country. Very cool campus right there in the heart of Golden. And that's a big part of that allure to Golden. You see the big M on the mountains for the School of Mines. So a key component and a big driving force for Golden. And how can I mention Golden without mentioning Coors Brewery? I mean, obviously, one of the biggest breweries in the entire country, although not owned by Coors anymore, Molson Coors, but still one of the biggest employers in the state and the single largest brewery in the world. And that place, it just stretches and it goes and it goes and it goes, and they continue to build onto it. So Coors just wraps up this canyon and just goes for, I want to say miles, but miles is probably an exaggeration, but it is a massive complex. And drawbacks of Golden, I kind of mentioned one already, and that is affordability. Golden is going to be a premium. You're going to pay in one way or another to live there, whether that's purchase prices being higher than what you're going to see in most areas, and rent prices tend to be higher. Now, I did find some places, you know, if I just did some casual search and talked to some folks, rents, you can find some decent places in Golden. They might not give you, 3 bedrooms and 3 baths in your apartment, but there are some options there. But affordability is going to be challenging in Golden in comparison to other places. At least other places in this video. And then the other drawback, and this is just a random one, but it's something that a lot of people who live in Golden or who have lived in Golden keep mentioning to me, and I've paid more attention to it, recently. And that is the fact that especially in the winter, the amount of summer, I should say in the winter, the amount of sunlight you get in Golden is just limited. So you're sitting in a canyon in Golden. And because of that, and because of the arc of the sun, is that right? The arc of the sun? There's just a lot of Golden that is in shade a lot of the time. And I've talked to people where they say like their house, because of its positioning next to the mountains, their house will literally not be hit by sun basically at all in the wintertime. So something to be aware of, where, if you're in the shade by 3:30 in the afternoon, it's still light outside, but you're in the shade by 3:30, if not sooner, that could get annoying for some folks. Next up on our list, just northwest of Denver and north of, good old Lakewood, where I am, I'm just randomly gonna tell you that, is Arvada. Now, I would tell you when I was in 8th grade, the most important thing you need to know about Arvada is that they were our biggest rivals in baseball, and we beat those fools, but I'm an adult now and 8th grade doesn't matter. So with Arvada, first big pro to me is Old Town Arvada. I mentioned how cool Golden's downtown is. Old Town Arvada, I mean, it does its best to rival that. So a ton of walkability. During COVID, they shut down a couple of the roads in Old Town to any type of cars. And since that, Old Town was already cool to begin with, but since that, it's just added a lot more walkability to it, and it's added outdoor elements where now there's a lot more patios and a lot more areas for people to sit and enjoy all the sunshine that Denver gets. And Old Town really gives you that small town feel more so than I think any other suburb you're going to find. You've got, the malt shops or the candy shops for the kids, ice cream. You've got your bars, your cafes. You've got some chains like any town would, but just a lot. It also has randomly, this may not matter at all, but it's got one of the coolest Army Navy stores that you're going to find. I like to frequent, check that place out from time to time. And some of the coolest coffee shops as well. I like to get out there, break out my laptop, or break out a nice book. Be that guy reading a book in the coffee shop. Don't judge me, but you're allowed to judge me. Another big pro of Arvada is just how pretty it is. How much outdoor activity, whether it's trails around, parks. There's just a lot to like about being outside in Arvada. It tends to be one of the greener areas, if you will, of Denver. And listen, we're a high plains desert, so water can be at a premium out here. But Arvada gives you a lot to like as far as your views and places to see, and just the way they have thought out some of their outdoor amenities. Again, those walking trails, biking trails, parks, etc. And the last pro I would mention here is, again, when we're just talking about comparing some of these different suburbs, is that Arvada's affordability tends to be better than most. Now, listen, I'm a firm believer, if what you want to pay lines up with what you want, whether you're buying or renting, you're going to be in good shape. If the idea is that you're going to get, a 4-bedroom house with a 3-car garage and a huge yard, and you're going to pay $1,000 a month, whether you're renting or buying it, I just probably think you're wrong. So, that's the bottom line. But when it comes to affordability, purchase prices in Arvada tend to be more reasonable than you're going to find in these others. Again, specific to different homes. And rents were a bit more affordable. And again, and we're going to get into this in the cons of Arvada, is that there's a premium placed on being closer to Old Town or being closer to their light rail system. So Arvada has a couple light rail stations right in the heart of Old Town. So it's one of those places that really does use that public transportation. So getting that premium being close to that may cost you a premium. Cons of Arvada, one, and this is a random one because it's kind of unique to Arvada, is that parts of Arvada are in a floodplain. What that means to you, especially or specifically to home buyers, is the fact that if you buy a home in a floodplain, you may be susceptible, one, to floods, but two, to flood insurance. And that is going to be a different policy from just your general homeowner's insurance, and that can be pricey. So there's times where you'll see a home that's on the market and it seems like, oh man, that's a smoking deal. Why isn't anybody buying this house? And the potential could be that it's in a floodplain, and that buying that house then comes with, several $100s in flood insurance to boot. And that is, again, not to say that homes in Arvada are just flooding left and right, but that is a risk that is pretty unique to Arvada. The second thing, and I say this is a con, but for some people it is a massive pro, and that is Farvada, and that's just what we call it. So the way Arvada is kind of a funky looking suburb. I don't know who drew it. I don't know who came up with this plan, but there's parts of Arvada that stretch west, and they stretch west on service roads that run, let's say, 35 to 40 miles per hour. And so getting to them can take a long time because you're not close to a highway. You're off of I-70. And so there are parts of Arvada, I'll use me as an example. Leaving Lakewood, where I am, I can get to downtown Arvada in 15 to 20 minutes. Easy, 20 minutes if there's traffic. But if I want to get to the western side of Arvada, kind of, if we can see the map again, this sliver of Arvada that kind of wraps west, that could take easily another 20 to 25 minutes, depending on if lights want to be nice to me or not. And so when you get out there, one, walkability goes, I mean, I say walkability, like you're not walking to shops and restaurants or any of that stuff. You are deep in the burbs, but you are also in beautiful nature. You're right up against the mountains, a lot of green, a lot of parks, a lot of hiking trails. So people who love that, they're going to be all about it. But if you want to have the convenience of getting especially into Old Town, or you want the convenience of getting into downtown Denver, you want to be able to get to places quickly, Arvada could be a struggle for you, or will be a struggle for you. So that's something to consider. Number 4 on the list is Wheat Ridge. Wheat Ridge is a suburb that, man, I've really grown fond of over time. So Wheat Ridge is just west of Denver. In fact, it's just north of Lakewood, just west of Denver, and a pretty small suburb. I mean, there's not a lot of room there. So the number 1 pro to me about Wheat Ridge is it may just have the best location of the bunch. And what I mean by that is you go just 5 minutes east of Wheat Ridge and you're in Sloan's Lake. You go another few minutes, you're in the Highlands. So you're right there close to 2 of the coolest neighborhoods that Denver has to offer. And then obviously you have Denver right there. So you can be downtown in, let's say 15 minutes. You can also be to the mountains in roughly 15 to 20 minutes, because from Wheat Ridge, you've got a quick jump over to I-70, and I-70 runs you right into the Rocky Mountains, in the heart of the mountains. So location is premium as far as Wheat Ridge is concerned. And apparently I like saying premium in this video. I think in every video I make, there's a word that I just like to repeat a lot, and this time it's premium. Second cool thing about Wheat Ridge, and there's plenty, but I'm just trying to give you a few in each video, is 38th Avenue. So in Wheat Ridge on 38th Avenue is just a stretch of all of your shops, bars, supermarkets, everything you need along, it's several blocks. It's a few miles long because it stretches basically from Sheridan, which is not Wheat Ridge, but 38th stretches all the way past Kipling. A large portion of that then becomes, as you get west of Wadsworth, north and south, you get west of Wadsworth, you reach into Wheat Ridge. So if you need something in Wheat Ridge, whether you're going to eat, drink, shop, chances are you're going to find it on 38th Avenue. And the thing that I really like about 38th is it gives a great blend of mom and pop. And obviously you get some corporate, you're not going to get away from that. You get some chains, but there are a ton of these independent places for all sorts of things. Arts and crafts, a bike shops, I should say, coffee shops, restaurants, you name it, all along 38th. Just a great stretch to explore. And that, again, 38th is also going to take you from Wheat Ridge. If you're going east, you can take 38th and it's going to wrap you right through Sloan's Lake, or right by Sloan's Lake. You're going to be just a little north of the lake. And it's going to run you also right into the heart of the Highlands. So, you're just right there. And last thing that I would mention about Wheat Ridge is its community centers. Not just, they've got a civic center, they've got a town center, they've got a giant rec center. There's just a lot for such a small area. There's a lot to like about the community amenities that Wheat Ridge has built. So a lot to love in that particular area. Now, knocks on Wheat Ridge, we talk about how small it is. There's just not a lot of room. It is one of, if not the smallest, geographically speaking, suburbs that you're going to find in Denver. And because of that, there's only so much they can do. Now there's been a lot of new construction in Wheat Ridge. So you're going to see some newer, not necessarily newer homes. You'll see that, but mainly some newer townhomes. You'll see some apartments, newer condos. A lot of that being developed along 38th as you get up to 38th and Kipling. Or 38th and Wadsworth, I should say, excuse me. So a lot to like in that range, but because it is small, there's only so much to choose from when it comes to Wheat Ridge. You don't have just, block after block if you're looking for a home. And the second con in that, because it's small and because you've seen a lot of new construction, you're seeing costs start to increase. So Wheat Ridge had a pretty healthy level of affordability to it. And again, I think the western side of town is going to have a tighter affordability opportunity than maybe the east side of town, where there's just more room on the east side. But Wheat Ridge has that increased cost. And especially in housing. We've seen the price of houses and the price of rent steadily increase in Wheat Ridge. And because of how small it is, I don't know if you can really see that getting a hold of. I think at a certain point, it's just going to kind of reach its cap and then slowly progress higher from there. And last but not least, and I know it's been a long one, but there's just too many good neighborhoods not to talk about. And we're not even talking about neighborhoods, we're talking about suburbs. And the fifth is kind of an outlier, and that is Evergreen, Colorado. So Evergreen, all of the others, Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Golden, Lakewood, they're all pretty close to Denver. They're all, 20 minutes, maybe 25 to 30 if you're talking Golden, from getting downtown. Evergreen is truly west. It's in the Rocky Mountains. It is up I-70. There's a few different routes that you can take to get to Evergreen, but Evergreen is roughly 40 minutes west of Denver. So depending on where you're coming from Denver, Evergreen could be upwards of 45 minutes to an hour away, maybe a bit longer. Again, depending on what parts of Evergreen and what part of Denver you were coming from, and certainly traffic. Evergreen is still part of Jefferson County, so it's still part of the same county that Lakewood, that all of the other neighborhoods or suburbs, I gotta quit saying neighborhoods, suburbs we've talked about are. The reason I wanna talk about Evergreen is, to me, Evergreen is the best blend of, you're in the mountains. You're not in a suburb of Denver. You don't, in my opinion, you don't feel like you are in a suburb of Denver. You're in the mountains. So I know I like to talk about these downtown areas, and Evergreen just has an extremely cool one. So if you take Route 74, and Route 74 goes through Morrison, Colorado, same town where Red Rocks is. I would have covered in this video, but I'd have you here for an hour and nobody wants that. So if you take Route 74, you're gonna go through these cool little towns, including Idledale, that's where I got married, and then you'll reach Evergreen. And as you go, you wrap around this cliff, and then you go through this little town, and it's a 1-lane in, 1-lane out road, where you've got shops mainly as you're going into Evergreen. They're on your right side, but you've got coffee shops, and you've got people outside selling goods. You've got Little Bear Saloon, which is just a great bar to go check out, live music, just have a beer. Kind of divey in the best way possible. Please don't hate me, Evergreen, for saying that. But by far one of the coolest downtowns you'll ever find. And I think, along with that cool downtown, is that Evergreen gives you the mountain town living feeling. You're living in the mountains without having to drive multiple hours in the mountains. So if you're someone who does need to get to Denver, you are, again, I mentioned, within, let's say, 45 minutes on the short end to an hour 15 on the long end from downtown Denver. So if you don't have to go down to Denver all the time, I don't know if I would recommend doing that for someone who has to commute to Denver every day, but if you have to get down to the city a couple times a week, or you want to be able to get down to the city for concerts, museums, sporting events, things of that nature, Evergreen might be perfect for you. And another amazing thing about Evergreen is Evergreen Lake. And that's just, you'll see here in drone footage, it's just gorgeous. There's nothing quite like it that I can compare to anywhere near Denver or even in the Front Range. Golden doesn't have anything like that. Morrison doesn't have anything like that, where you drive into this valley, and here is this big, for Denver, for Colorado standards, a pretty sizable lake right there in the middle that really just, the whole town circles around. And so you've got, your hiking, biking, all of your mountain activities there in the summer. And then during the winter, you can get out there. I don't know if they ice fish on it. They might, but they certainly ice skate on it. A lot of activities up in Evergreen. So just, it's gorgeous. And the last pro, there's a lot of pros of any of these communities, but the last one I would mention is that Evergreen just has a great community feeling to it. Because it is a mountain town, because it's not the largest town out there, I think you just tend to get a lot of feel for community. A lot of people help each other, a lot of different events within the community. It's just got that mountain town vibe to it. And we like to say vibe a lot. I got hit on comments a couple times because apparently you're not supposed to overuse the term vibe, but vibe is at a premium. See what I did there? Negatives to Evergreen, some of them are going to be pretty obvious. As I mentioned earlier, if you have to commute to Denver or, anywhere close to the city, your commute could be, if you're driving an hour each way, that could get old for you, just depending on how often. I've got friends that live up in Evergreen, but they only have to come down to Denver here and there. It's perfect. But I've also had people who have moved up to Evergreen and realized they're just driving way too much and it's just not for them. And that's when they end up moving towards, maybe a Morrison or maybe a Golden or something where they still get a little mountain, but they're closer to the city. The next con is going to be that, hey, harsher winters are probably going to occur. You are in the mountains. The higher elevation you get, more in the mountains you get, the more snow odds are you're going to deal with. The colder the weather is going to be. So if you're looking for milder winters moving to Denver, odds are going to Evergreen out of the suburbs we have talked about today is not going to be ideal. Another negative of Evergreen is going to be affordability, and I think that that's going to depend because I've certainly had some clients who found great properties up there, a lot of ownership up there. I mean, there's some renters, but a lot of ownership up there, but there are some good price points there. I will just randomly tell you that if you go up Old Bear Creek Road, you want to talk about some pristine, holy cow houses, like Bill Gates type houses. Not that you have to be a Bill Gates fan. Some of these houses at these places, they're like castles. It's just crazy. I'm just randomly going to share that with you. I can't even get video of it because the roads are too tight for a drone. But anyway, so affordability could be a thing. The last con I'm going to mention, because I'm probably putting some of you to sleep at this point, is the fact that you're in mountain properties. So some of these communities, and there's different sections of Evergreen, some of them are going to be on well or septic, or both. They're not going to be part of public water. So there's going to be specific things that you're going to look for on those properties. Internet could be different. So just understand that there are some of these houses that are going to be relatively close to town, easy access to town. You're in the mountains, but you're still close to civilization, if you will. And then there are some houses in Evergreen where, you're going to feel like you're out in the sticks. And a lot of your amenities are going to be on you. And I'm not saying you're not going to have electricity, but well and septic can be a very different lifestyle than people who have been, living in a city and not used to that sort of thing. So something to be aware of and pretty specific to Evergreen in comparison to these other communities we've talked about today. But as you can see, there's a lot to discuss about these suburbs. And if you're looking at moving to Denver, being on the western side of town is, in my opinion, one of the best routes to go and a lot of communities to consider. And if you'd like to discuss them in detail, that's what I'm here for. So that number and email popping up on your screen, know that I'm always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails, there when and if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. That was Where Should I Live If I'm Moving to Denver, Colorado. Till I see you next time, peace.